Hey guys, this is Joel from the Fincastle Pokemon Gym. I know for some of you that have started following what I do, you have to be thinking, man, this dude is months behind the format. And you're right, but that's okay, as I'm not chasing an invite, although I'd love to take a year and do that, because I can only imagine the havoc I'd wreak on the gatekeepers when a 50-year-old showed up and started stealing their thunder. But maybe one day, not today, as I've got too much stuff to do. But most of that pacing just comes from patience. Maybe it's an Appalachian thing where we grew up fishing and hunting. I don't know. I can tell you that if, as soon as you get to the lake, you jump in and start splashing around and screaming fish, you're not going to catch anything. And that's what the YouTube world always seems like to me. A set comes out and everybody jumps in and starts splashing, and then moves on to another spot and jumps in and starts splashing again. I like to sit back, throw out a line, and see what bites. So many decks that I play do well online because they are cards that got 5 minutes of treatment and then everybody had to go splash somewhere else. And that's what got me to this week's deck. I just profiled Tinkaton because of the character's popularity. That got me thinking what else is popular with general audiences that we see at shows all the time. Obviously those are like Charizard, Rayquaza, Mimikyu, Gardevoir, Gengar. And of those, are there any decks? Obviously there's Charizard and Gardevoir. But just saying those words in my head, I said Gengar EX and remembered, oh yeah, there is a Gengar EX. Already forgotten because he was last week's thing, but we did just get a whole bunch of dark stuff and already have some pretty good dark support. So I got the old list out and started playing around and got to something pretty good and probably pretty frustrating. Let's look at the card. Gengar EX is a Stage 2, 310 HP Dark type. He has the ability Gnawing Curse, and one attack called Tricky Steps. He is weak to fighting and has a 2 energy retreat cost. Let's first look at the ability Gnawing Curse. Gnawing Curse states that whenever your opponent attaches an energy card from their hand to one of their Pokemon, you put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. There are lots of things that do dodge this, like Seda, Arceus V-Star, Palkia V-Star, Electric Generator, Dark Patch. But the other side of that is there are guys like Chenpao EX and Teal Mask Ogerpon EX that get absolutely punished by this. And there is not a deck out there that can go multiple turns without an attachment from their hand. And what can make this such a nasty ability is that it is stackable. So if you get all 3 Gengar EX in at one time, then that's 6 for each energy attachment. Which is probably why I could never get any footage against Chenpao, other than concedes, and that's not very riveting footage. As cool as that is, the ability is not the focus of the deck. What makes Gengar EX very playable, in my opinion, is the attack Tricky Steps. Tricky Steps takes 2 dark energies, does a decent 160 damage, and it gives you the option to move an energy from your opponent's active to one of their bench. The key part in the wording of his attack is the word may, and I'll talk about why may is more important in just a minute. There's a lot to cover here from the perspective of the format. For instance, Charizard EX only plays 6 energy, so if you can lock them onto a Rotom or even a Pidgeot EX, then that matchup becomes a quick concede as well. Raging Bolt, same goes for the lightning energy there. You move it to an Ogerpon or a Radiant Greninja where they can't use it. Sometimes they can never attack with anything except for Ogerpon. Anything that relies on special energy, you just move that energy to wherever it's the least usable, in many cases unusable, like putting 2 luminous energy on the same target, and then they cancel each other. Or a reversal energy to a big basic, or anything with a rule box. And that's why the May part is important, because decks like Chenpao and Raging Bolt can burn it from anywhere, so it's not really where the energy is, it's that you move the right energy somewhere that it can't be used. There are lots of things to consider. You do need to understand your matchups for this deck to be good, and some of that's just going to come with practice, which you can't get by just listening to me. You will have to play this deck and just get a feel for it. Let's get the list up and see it, because there's a lot to cover there as well. Looking at the build, you can see that the Charizard EX decks have laid out a nice blueprint for Stage 2 decks, which I'm not afraid to borrow from. Thus the Rotom, V's, the 4 Sealstone, and the Pidgeot EX portion of this. I went with a 4-1-3 line of Gengar, and I included a mix of dark types. Roaring Moon EX is there to take out something big and 1 attack. A Pheasantipede EX is there just for the extra draw power, but in a deck that does 160 like Gengar EX, a Sniper is nice to have as he can hit 100 to anywhere. Picharon EX is there mostly as a backup attacker, much like the older Shaman and Double from previous generations that hit for big numbers in the late game, but his ability is interesting as well. Sometimes I use it to set up a switch after using a Janine to clear my Gengar of poison, because Janine poisons, we'll get to that in a second. Sometimes it just helps keep something from getting trapped in the active spot. I'm not 100% sold on him, but I'm continuing to try him in here. I've got my damage manipulators from several previous decks that I've done lately, Monkey Dory and Radiant Alakazam. Monkey Dory is a nice fit in here because this is a dark energy focused deck, so you already have that readily available. I included one Psychic Energy so he can attack, and once I did that, I figured why not add Mimikyu, as there are still decks that have no answer to him at all. Kind of breezing over the trainers and supporters. Like I said, this is very similar to Charizard. The Arven, Iono, Palfin, and the ball count can be easily manipulated to your preference. I like the mix that I have here, but you could change this one by a card or two with no problems. I think this is the first deck I've used Janine's Secret Art in. Just to explain what that does real quick, it says you choose 2 of your dark Pokemon and you attach a basic dark energy from your deck, which is amazing. And if one of those is active, it is poisoned. And I don't find this to be a problem, as you can use a free retreating Pidgeot EX and Picharon EX to get that Gengar out of being poisoned if that's where he was when you played the Janine. So down the line you may find that a higher count of Janine would be good in this deck. The other key cards to point out are the Handheld Fan and the Pokemon League Headquarters Stadium. Handheld Fan as a tool states that if your active is damaged from an attack while wearing this, you move an energy from their active Pokemon to one of their benched. And there is no May in that one, you have to move it, but moving one on your turn with your attack, then doing it again on theirs, and then again on yours, is kind of crazy, and you can see how that can disable some decks completely in like 3 or 4 turns. Then looking at the Stadium, the Pokemon League Headquarters requires a basic Pokemon to have 1 more energy attached to attack. And this is pretty gross against stuff like Raging Bolt or Iron Hands or Miraidon. I only play 1 in here again. And let me say it this way, I hope I'm presenting you with a deck that is not only good, but it's very customizable, meaning that you could up the fans or the stadiums, play 4 Arvens so you could get to those easier. All kinds of things you can do. I just want you to see the possibilities. Last but not least, many builds I debate which aspect to use. In this one, it's no question. You need Prime Catcher in this one to pursue targets, to either move energy off of, or to finish off with a knockout. I know there's a lot here, but trust me when I say this deck is very fun to play. Let's get into some games so you can watch Gengar cause some mischief. This first game is going to be against Gardevoir. Before I get into that, we'll have to point out that I did really bling this deck out because it is Gengar and he needed full arts. So he got full art everything in this one. You can see I'm just going to start out just almost like a Charizard list. Just getting some basics down with the Palfin, and then I'm going to use Rotom's ability to end my turn. This is kind of where Janine shows its strength, and maybe kind of speaks to the fact maybe this needs another Janine in here, is that I could not attack this turn without it because I didn't get an energy attachment last turn. I'm going to attach from my hand there, use Artisan, and go ahead and get Monkey Dory down, because he becomes very useful in mitigating the damage that you take from poisoning yourself with Janine, which I'm getting ready to do here. Janine lets me get 2 more attachments. Lets me get that second attachment on Gengar. I'll go ahead and get one on Ghastly as well. And that's going to enable me on my second turn to go ahead and attack and knock out this Drifloon, which is really faster than this deck usually is, but it was just a really good turn for me on that one. And you can see at the end of the turn I moved the energy down to Manaphy to stick it there so it's not in the discard pile. They didn't really have much of anything on their turn, so it comes back to me. I'm going to Nest Ball and go ahead and get a Picharunt. That gives me that option to be able to switch my my active out at any point here. I'm going to get rid of 2 Iono, don't need them. Don't want to help their hand out because you can see they have a small hand. Just again, like playing Charizard, I'm going to go ahead and get Pidgeot, and that opens up the door for me to just be able to get whatever else I want each turn with the search from Pidgeot. Just going to get a Dark Energy. I'm going to use Picharunt's ability to swap out, get Gengar back active. And I'm just going to attach that Dark to Monkey Dory. Then we're going to keep that Manaphy in play, stuck with that energy. Go ahead and use Lysander. Move some of the damage off with Monkey Dory to a second Ralts, and then we'll knock this Ralts out One of the reasons I really didn't talk about Gardevoir much in talking about the deck is just that this match and several others I've played kind of shows that it's not really much of a matchup for Gengar. Gengar can kind of dominate this deck. Over their turn, they did get a lot more setup, and then they used their Evolution TM to go ahead and get a Gardevoir into play and evolve a Ralts into Curlia. Back to me, I'm going to go ahead and use that Monkey Dory to move poison damage off. Then we're going to use Pidgeot. Go and get Gengar. We've got Arven in hand. With Arven, this is kind of a tricky play that you might not see, but if you play Charizard much, you probably know how to do this. We use Arven to get the Forest Seal Stone, and I grab Catcher for my my Prime Catcher with my item. Then I can use my Seal Stone to get my Rare Candy. Would already grab the Gengar. So I've got 2 Gengar in play. That's going to make 4 damage counters go down anytime they attach any energy from their hand, which Gardevoir I know tries not to do that. Then, you have to remember Gardevoir is weak to Dark. I hit for 160, which is a 1-hit on Gardevoir. So we use Prime Catcher to go ahead and get that first Gardevoir they finally got into play and just take it out before they can really use it to do any damage. That's 2 more prizes, and again, this is kind of a runaway game. Most Gardevoir matches seem to go this way for me. They come back and get another Gardevoir. They get their Screamtail loaded up. It can do 200 damage. I think they're just looking for a way to take prizes at this point. And they are going to snipe down and take out the Peacherunt. I guess they could have taken Rotom either one. It wouldn't have made much difference, but they do get 2 prizes that way. I'm going to use Pidgeot to go ahead and grab Lysander. They've got my target sitting there on the bench. That's all I need to do. Use Lysander to grab that Gardevoir EX, and then we will knock it out for the last 2. That's really all you have to do in this matchup is just target the Gardevoirs. Just try to get to a Gengar as fast as you can and run with him. We'll get one more match in here. We're going to show one against Maron and Iron Hands. We'll pick this one up already in progress. They get up to a pretty fast start, as it always does. It got to an Iron Hands to knock out my Monkey Dory, which did have the fan on. Weren't able to take an extra prize on this one though, because I did have the Stadium in play, so they could only attack with Arm Press. Early on, you just got to pick a target. There's that Squawk ability there. That's the perfect target. You move a double turbo down there. The best it can do is ever just reattach energies, because it can't do any damage with that double turbo on. I'm going to get that Mimikyu as a threat there, because, again, they don't have an answer outside of Zapdos for him. I'm going to go ahead and hit Iron Hands, and I'm just going to keep moving energy to that Squawk ability. They did load up a Maridon ready to attack, but could not get Iron Hands out of the way. So he's just sitting down there waiting right now. And that looks to me like a good thing to grab, so I'm going to grab that Maridon with my Stadium still in play. I can make him at least have to attach another energy to attack me. It seems my Stadium has given them some serious trouble in this match. I'm not sure they play a Stadium bump. If they do, it's maybe Town Store. Probably just one of those. They finally have their Maridon with enough energy to attach, so they boss up a Rotom. Kind of surprised they didn't go after the Pidgeot, but they just went after prizes, easy prizes, maybe weren't thinking there. I finally top an Arven, helped me get out of this single Gengar set that I'm in. I did have to throw away Pidgeot and Gengar early, I think with an Ultra Ball, so I've got a Pidgeot sitting there in my discard pile. I can get back with the Stretcher. So I'm going to go ahead and Rare Candy to Pidgeot in Quick Search. Just going to get Haunter, as there's no way they can take out this Gengar in one shot, so I feel pretty good about being patient to just slowly evolve to the next Gengar. I'm going to start looking at Roaring Moon as a one-hit as well. But we will finish off that Maridon, put another energy down on Squawkabilly, get into my prize cards. Back on theirs, they fiddled around all they could. They had to attack with Squawkabilly's Motivate to just reattach some basic energy from the discard pile. They chose Iron Hands for the target there. So naturally, I am going to catch that Iron Hands. Setting up my Haunter on the Prime Catcher, because I'm just going to use Quick Search from my Pidgeot to get my second Gengar in play. That way I'll have 2 of these guys are still undamaged, which is kind of crazy at this point. I'll go ahead and attach to him. And the Poffin just shows I've still got another Ghastly in there. I don't want anything else down, so I'm going to attack. knock out this Iron Hands and move an energy, you can guess where, to Squawkabilly. Out of these two prizes, we will get Janine and Dark Patch. So I condensed down these last two turns as they tried to find a way to attack one more time. They could not. I attacked twice into the same Raikou V and just knock him out to take my last two prizes. And in what was probably a pretty frustrating game all the way around for my opponent. I don't know, I think this Gengar EX deck has a pretty unique place in the format. Kind of like the Tinkaton EX list from last week. Tinkaton has that mix of bulk and one-hit power that nothing outside of Raging Bolt EX really has. Gengar brings that same bulk with some disruption that's not dependent on something like Crushing Hammer or anything else. It can disrupt anything and everything. With its fighting weakness, it doesn't really have a major vulnerability. The biggest really is speed, but as you can see in the Maron match, which is the fastest thing out there at the moment, even if you fall behind early, if you stay on target, the disruption of the energy becomes too much to handle, and you can make some pretty impressive comebacks. I think if you keep your eye on Stage 2 lists like Charizard, Gardevoir, and Dragapult as they develop, you can match the core parts of Gengar to those. You do have to pick and choose who gets a spot on the bench. I think you'll notice I didn't play a Fezandipity in the matches that I showed you, but I've used him in others, and same goes for Roaring Moon. He never really got into the game either, but those are some pretty strong backup players to have in the wings if you need them. I will say this with confidence, this is the best Gengar we've had in a while. I think it's better than Gengar VMAX, it's far better than Gengar Prime for sure. I'd say it's the best since Stormfront's Fading Spell Gengar, if anybody out there even remembers who that is, but I can tell you that that is very good company. But that's going to be it for today. Thank you guys for watching. Any support you can give to the channel, either through interaction or a recommendation to others, is always appreciated. And if you have any questions, give me a shout in the comments. Until next time, be not afraid. Later.